Omar was 11 years old when the first golden tear fell. It happened on a quiet afternoon. She had tripped outside their small house, scraping her knee against a sharp stone. The pain was small, the kind that usually fades after a few seconds. But when she cried, something strange happened. Her mother gasped. Instead of water, a drop of golden liquid rolled down Omar's cheek. It shimmered in the sunlight before falling to the ground with a soft metallic sound. Her father picked it up with shaking fingers. It was real, heavy, pure, valuable. At first, there was silence in the house. Confusion, fear, questions whispered in the dark. Her mother held her tightly that night. "This is not a blessing," she said softly. "It is something the world will try to steal." But her father saw it differently. Within weeks, the secret escaped their home. A cousin told a friend told a neighbor, and soon the entire village knew about the girl whose tears turned to gold. Everything changed. Children who once played with her began to mock her. "You are strange. Why don't you cry for us? Are you even human?" They pushed her doing games, hid her slippers, broke her toys. They watched her face carefully, waiting. The moment her eyes filled with tears, they leaned closer. The gold would fall. Adults were worse. Some pretended kindness. "Oh, poor child," they would say, then whisper cruel things about her mother, about her parents, about how unwanted she was. They didn't care about her feelings. They cared about what dropped from her face. Golden tears hit the ground, and grown men scrambled like beggars fighting over the gold. Her father began collecting them quietly at first. A small bowl hidden in his room, then a jar, then a locked wooden box beneath his bed. Omar noticed the change. When she cried, people smiled. When she stayed silent, they grew impatient. She began to hold her tears in. Her chest would ache from the effort. Her small fingers would dig into her palms to stop the sobs. But sometimes the pain was too much, and the gold would fall again. One evening, as she watched strangers argue over the pieces gathered from her sorrow, she asked her mother in a trembling voice, "If I stop crying, will they stop loving me?" Her mother had no answer. Outside, her father counted gold beneath a lantern's glow, while the village patiently waited for the next tear. By the time Omar turned 15, her father stopped pretending. He no longer called her his daughter in public. He called her a blessing, a miracle, a rare opportunity. Then one day, he locked her bedroom door from the outside. From that moment, no one saw Omar unless he allowed it. Her windows were covered, her meals were passed through a small opening, and every morning he entered her room carrying a small metal bowl. "Cry," he would say calmly, as if asking for water. At first, she refused. She would stare at the wall, silent, empty. But he knew exactly what to say. He reminded her how useless she would be without him, how the world would hunt her down, how her mother was weak, how she owed him everything. Sometimes he shouted. Sometimes he whispered cruel truths. Sometimes he brought strangers into the room to insult her until her chest felt tight and her vision blurred. And when the tears finally fell, bright and heavy like molten sunlight, he would kneel quickly to collect them. He never looked at her face, only at the gold. Her mother begged him to stop. "This is your child," she cried. "She is not a mine you dig until it is empty." But he would laugh, adjusting his flowing robe. "Opportunity comes but once, woman, and I will not be poor when it passes." Word spread far beyond their village. Travelers arrived from distant towns. Merchants came with guards. Gold buyers waited outside their gates with sealed pouches of cash. He sold Omar's tears in a market as if they were harvested crops. Pure, untouched, rare. Money flooded in. He built a larger house, bought land, donated to village projects. Soon, elders honored him. Drummers sang his name. He was given a chieftaincy title, praised as a man favored by destiny. They never asked about the girl inside the locked room. Inside, Omar grew quieter. Her tears came more slowly now, not because the pain was less, but because something inside her was hardening. She stopped arguing, stopped begging, stopped hoping. She would sit by the window at night, staring at the thin line of moonlight slipping through the cracks. Her mother would visit secretly when her father was away, holding her, whispering apologies she did not deserve to say. But the door always locked again, and outside, her father counted his earnings with a satisfied smile. It looked like nothing was ever going to change. Omar's mother stopped crying in front of her husband, not because she wasn't broken, but because she had started planning. The idea came from a whisper in the market. Two women arguing over vegetables mentioned a healer in a faraway land, a man who could lift curses, untie spiritual knots, and return stolen destinies. Most people laughed at such stories. Omar's mother did not. That night, she sat beside her daughter on the cold floor of the locked room. Omar's eyes looked older than 15. There was no sparkle left in them, only quiet endurance. "I heard something," her mother whispered. Omar did not respond. "There is a healer. They say he removes burdens that cling to the soul." At that, Omar finally looked up, not hopeful, just tired. "It won't matter," she said softly. "He will find us." Her mother knew she was right. Her husband had guards now, influence, money, men who owed him favors. If they left during the day, they would be dragged back before sunset. So she waited. She watched her husband's routine carefully. The night he drank too much palm wine, the mornings he left early for the market, the way he hid the keys beneath his pillow. And then she chose her moment. It was deep into the night when the house fell silent. The lanterns had burned out. The guards outside were laughing over a quiet game. She moved slowly. She took the keys. She unlocked the door. For a moment, Oma just stared at her mother, confused. "Get up," she whispered urgently. "No questions." They packed nothing but a small bag, a change of clothes, dried food, and the little money her mother had secretly saved over the years. No gold. They stepped into the darkness barefoot. Every sound felt like thunder. Every shadow felt like a witness. They avoided the main road, crossed fields, slipped past sleeping houses. The village that once celebrated her father now slept peacefully, unaware that its source of wealth was disappearing into the night. Omar did not look back. By dawn, they were already far beyond the borders of the village. Her father still slept. But when he woke, the house would no longer hold his treasure. And for the first time in years, Omar felt something different in her chest. Not fear, not sorrow, but the fragile beginning of freedom. Her father woke before sunrise, as he always did. He did not notice the silence at first. He stretched, adjusted his robe, and reached beneath his pillow for the keys. The familiar weight was gone. His eyes opened fully. He rose quickly and walked down the corridor toward Omar's room, already annoyed that she had not cried during the night. He pushed the door open. Empty. The bed was neatly arranged, the window slightly open. The air inside felt different, lighter. For a moment, he stood still. Then the shouting began. He searched every corner of the house, called for guards, ran through the compound barefoot, screaming her name like a man who had lost treasure, not a daughter. He grabbed a bucket from the corner and rushed back into her room, as if gold might still be waiting on the floor. There was nothing. By the time he understood the truth, Omar and her mother were miles away. Days later, after long walks, hidden paths and restless nights, they finally reached the healer's land, a quiet settlement surrounded by thick trees and cool wind. The healer was an old man with steady eyes. He said very little. He listened. He studied Omar's face, not with greed, but with concern. "This gift was forced into suffering," he said calmly, "and suffering chained it." He asked Omar to sit on woven mats inside a small hut. He covered her gently with fresh green leaves, their scent sharp and alive. Then he began to chant softly, words older than memory. The air felt heavy. Omar closed her eyes. For the first time, she did not feel watched. She felt seen. A warmth moved through her chest. Not painful, not sharp, just steady. The weight she had carried for years, the pressure to produce, to break, to cry, loosened. Tears filled her eyes again. They fell, clear, transparent, no shimmer, no gold. Her mother gasped and held her tightly. The healer nodded once. "It is done." Omar felt it instantly. The strange tension that had lived beneath her skin was gone. Her tears were her own again, not a currency, not a spectacle. They never returned to their village. They traveled farther still, settling in a quiet place where no one knew her name, where no one looked at her eyes with expectation. And whenever Omar cried, it was because she felt deeply, not because someone demanded it. And this time, no one rushed to the ground. The gold had disappeared. But for the first time in her life, she was free. At first, Omar's father believed they would return. He told everyone the same thing. "A girl like her cannot survive without me," he said proudly. "She will come back when she's hungry." Days passed, then weeks. Her room remained empty. The ball he once carried every morning gathered dust in the corner. Still, he waited. But the people who came looking for him were not his daughter and wife. They were the merchants, men who had traveled from distant towns, wealthy buyers who had once stood patiently outside his gate, waiting for their share of the rare golden tears. Many of them had paid him in advance. They came expecting gold. Instead, they found excuses. "She will return soon," he told them, but his voice no longer carried confidence. The merchants were not patient men. When it became clear that the miracle girl was gone, their anger turned cold and calculated. They demanded their money. When he could not repay them, they took something else. First, they took his remaining gold. Then his land. Then the large house he had built with the profits of his daughter's suffering. Piece by piece, everything disappeared. The drummers who once sang his praises stopped visiting. The villagers who once bowed their heads when he passed now looked through him as if he were invisible. The proud man who once wore flowing robes and a chieftaincy title now walked the same dusty roads as everyone else. Soon, even that pride faded. To survive, he began working on other people's farms. Long days beneath the burning sun, digging soil that did not belong to him. No guards, no servants, no merchants waiting at his door, just silence. At night, in the small hut he could barely afford, he sometimes remembered the soft sound golden tears made when they dropped into his bowl. But strangely, he could not remember the sound of his daughter laughing. And in the end, that was the only thing that truly mattered.
I should have seen it coming. My pride blinded me to the truth. Now I sit here alone with only my regrets.